This is my daughter's shared bedroom, and it has been a real pain in the you-know-what to figure out. My older daughter stays here during the summer, and then she goes away to school, and then my middle daughter takes over. And the issues have basically been just furniture layout, so I need to get this under control. I need to make it work for both of them. Come and see how I do. The layout was the biggest issue. They really wanted a couch in there, but the existing couch is obviously too big. There's really only one good wall for the bed, which is right there. That's where they wanted it. These were the two vision boards that I showed them. Again, I wanted them both to agree with it. They liked the blue better, so time to get started. I have never done a totally color saturated room, but that is my plan for this space. I'm putting two samples down. I wanted a blue that didn't feel too cute, that could kind of grow with them. You know the deal. The two blues that I'm trying in here are Benjamin Moore Saratoga Springs and Slate Blue. I ended up going with the Slate Blue. Whenever I do a kid's room, I do always show the designs to my kids because I want them to like it, and then I ultimately kind of take over and add all the various embellishments. But they fundamentally liked the color idea, they liked the fabrics, and they liked kind of the direction I was going in. I just kind of took it from there. So I am undoing what I had done before. I gave it like a little mini refresh a couple of years ago. We had some floating shelves, which were fine, but you could never really put a bunch of stuff on them. And storage is a big issue in here, especially with two girls essentially sharing it. I took apart all of that. This was a cute little gallery wall. I think I have different plans for this space because these were just kind of paintings and works of art that we had thrown in there. We're also going to get rid of the ease. That was what my 10-year-old child wanted, and now that she's 14, she doesn't want them anymore. Both of them really love having a cork board, so that's going to go back up, and I'm not mad about it. This is just a basic IKEA shelf. I actually love the color. I wish IKEA would make more colorful. I can't say it, guys. I wish IKEA would make more colorful furniture. There, I did it. So this actually is going next door into the other girl's bedroom. Hey, Dust Bunny, what's going on down there? There were a bunch of anchors from the floating shelves. So what I do is I just push them back into the wall so that they fall down kind of behind the drywall. And then obviously I need to patch sand and repaint there. I have a plan for this wall, so honestly, it doesn't matter how carefully I patch and paint these, but I'm gonna do it right. We have finally chosen a paint color too. I ended up going with the one that matched a little love seat that I was able to find that was pretty inexpensive. And I'm hoping to repurpose that headboard that I made. I really like it. The channel tufting is sort of cool. I don't know if that's what you call it. I think it is. I don't know. So I'm hoping that this can come apart and I can just reupholster it. This is some wallpaper that I put up. That was for a campaign, and I actually love aesthetically how that wallpaper arch looks back there. I recently saw that the #1 thing that homeowners were undoing was wallpaper, which, I mean, I totally get it, but I love wallpaper and we have so much in our space, but that just made me laugh. So this wallpaper is coming down. It didn't come off super easy, but it was just a tiny little bit, so no big deal. And now it's time to start painting. The blue looks really, really good. I love that it has sort of a nice, sophisticated feel to it. I'm excited to see how it looks when the entire space is drenched with it. One of the reasons I decided to paint the walls, and you'll see coming up, I'm also gonna get into the trim and the back of the doors, is that there are so many shapes in this room. There's the door to get into the room, there's the bifold doors on the closet, there's trim around those, there's trim around the windows, and it's just a lot. So when I leave the trim and the doors white, the space just feels really kind of segmented, like there's a lot going on. So I'm not gonna paint the actual mullions on the window just because I've never done it, and I think that gets into painting like the sides of the window and like hardware, and that feels like a lot. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna paint the trim around the windows and just see how that looks. You can tell that there's not a lot of mullions, but again, I'm just a little worried to paint the actual window because then I've just never done it. So I'm gonna go into this slowly. My oldest was home for, I think I did this over her spring break. So my oldest was home for spring break and she helped me paint a little bit of this. I don't think she had ever painted, so that is definitely a mom fail. For the backs of the doors and the bifold doors, I probably should have sanded and scuffed it up and then primed. But I am hoping, and listen, this is just my justification for being lazy. I gave it a good cleaning and I deglossed it, and then I am using a paint with primer. And my hope is that these doors, especially the back of the door coming in and these closet doors, they're just not gonna get a lot of action. So I don't really foresee it being a problem. You know, there aren't gonna be people kicking against them, moving against them. So I don't think they're gonna get scraped up too badly, but lesson learned if they do. Here I am painting. Paint is the best part of any project because it like begins to show you what your vision is and whether or not it's gonna come to life. I have new furniture picked out for this space, a new carpet. We're keeping the bed, but I'm again hoping to reupholster the headboard. We'll get new bedding.
Okay, I'm in the girls' room. I am wearing my coat because it is so cold here in Connecticut. But I have rearranged and set out a different floor plan, which I need to see if my daughter approves of it, but I think it actually works a little bit better. I'm gonna have to build something for this wall. The plan is to build a bookshelf that will also have a little desk area in it. Nothing is centered, nothing is symmetrical, but given the layout, I think this is pretty functional, and I'm hoping that the boss lady approves.
I have plans to build, I think I mentioned before, a better storage setup. So I started by having the guys at Home Depot cut down that piece of plywood just to get me started. I was a little bit anxious to create a whole bookshelf on my own, but I did find a desk on Facebook Marketplace that I am going to put shelves on top of. So it's a little bit of a desk bookshelf situation. Because the desk is so wide, I had to really be thoughtful and deliberate about how I was building those bookshelves. I won't be able to put a center support on the bookshelves like you would normally because there's a desk underneath. So I'm building the shelves in a pretty chunky way. Essentially, I'm framing out each shelf. That's what you can see me building here. And then I will put some 3/4 inch plywood on top. So they're gonna be chunky, but I'm hoping that they'll be sturdy enough so that when they're like 50 inches wide, they won't sag or do anything gnarly in the middle. I'm using just my Craig jig and pocket holes, and I'm starting by building the frame of the shelf, almost like you would build floating shelves if you've ever built floating shelves. I don't know. You can head over to my blog and maybe I explain it better there. But these are the shelves coming together. I'm using wood glue, pocket screws, and then you should see the Facebook Marketplace table in a minute. I don't know why building shelves from scratch felt sort of scary, but building shelves to put on top of a desk didn't feel as scary. Make it all make sense. I built shelves for my office once and they were like 90% okay, but there were a couple of mistakes. So I guess I'm a little gun shy. Here is the table. It's super clean lines. It's pretty well built. It's really sturdy. So I'm just giving it a scuff sand because I'm gonna end up painting all of these the same as the wall color. I wanna say I paid like $40 for that. So it was really cheap. Here I am building the shelves. So that is the side panel. That's what I had the guys at Home Depot help me cut down. Their cuts are never perfect. So I did have to come back and run a couple of these through my table saw, but running a 18-inch board through my table saw, I feel very comfortable with. Running a full sheet of plywood through my table saw, not so much. So you can see the shelves coming together. Listen, guys, I am gonna give you a heads up. I screwed up. It's not the end of the world, but I planned for the space between those shelf supports. This is the spacing that I wanted, and I just completely spaced that I was gonna have to put 3/4 inch plywood on the top and the bottom to essentially trim out these shelves. So what was gonna be like 12 inches between the shelves ended up being more like 10.5. It's still fine, it fits books, but it's just not exactly what I wanted. So it just goes to show, I've been building for 10 years and I still screw up pretty much every time. Here I am putting the shelves in place. So I'm using some wood glue and then I put the 3/4 inch plywood on top and I'm just using a basic brad nailer to attach them. I'm not worried about the front of these. I'm gonna trim everything out so you won't see that end grain. But like I said, this is where I made that mistake and I just totally forgot to take into account the width of the 3/4 inch plywood that's going on the top. I guess I don't have one on the bottom. I don't care if you can see up onto the shelf. This is just going in you know, a tween bedroom, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Here I am cutting down some plywood to give a little support to the back. This is definitely going to be anchored into the studs, so don't worry about it being a tipping hazard. But I'm cutting down the 3/4 inch plywood to add some support to the top of the shelf, the back of the shelf. And then here I am using some plywood that I trimmed down to cover the end grain and the sides, so it looks just a little bit more balanced. The desk that it's sitting on top of is pretty chunky, so I wanted the front of the shelves to sort of match, and I think they will. I think it's about the right proportion. Filling all those brad nail holes, and then I am sanding it smooth. I'm giving it a coat of primer just because I don't want any of this grain to bleed through, and then I'm gonna paint it with that same paint color. It occurs to me as I'm recording this voiceover that I should go back, remind myself what paint I used. My brain can never remember, and tell you. So this is a note to future Charlotte. Go back and add the name of the paint color into the first part of the video. That'll be fun. Getting rid of this existing desk felt so good. This was a DIY years ago, and at the time it was a perfect little desk for my 9-year-old daughter, but you can see how light it is. It had a ton of storage, but they never sat at it, so it was just like a place for things to go and be hidden away. So we got rid of that. That went immediately to Goodwill. My husband helped me bring this bookshelf upstairs. It is really heavy, and I hadn't really thought about how I was gonna get it up onto the desk. No, I mean, I can't even budget. So here's my next plan. I'm gonna tip it onto the couch. This may be the first time you're seeing the couch. This is a love seat. I think I got it from Wayfair. I'll include a link to everything in the video description, but this was kind of what I matched for the paint color. But I was able to kind of tip the shelf onto the couch and then tip it up onto the desk. And these moments when something you've built fits perfectly, there are a lot of wonderful things in life. That is a pretty great feeling. Here you can see me looking for studs in the wall. So I'm gonna go through the supports of each shelf in a few places, and I'm just gonna use cabinet screws to anchor this into the studs. So this guy isn't going anywhere. I am swapping up because there's not a desk right there. There's not an obvious side table. So we have this little round side table, but it's not big enough for a lamp. So I'm putting a lamp on the wall, just a plug-in sconce. And then I'm measuring for a fun idea I had for this wall. I'm just using budget posters. P.S. Posters now come on canvas. I don't know when that happened, but I got all of these really sweet Flower Mart prints on Amazon. Again, there's gonna be a link in the video description. I love them. And I saw my friend Brooke from Nesting with Grace. She did something similar in her girls' room where she just mounted a bunch of posters right next to each other so that they kind of look like wallpaper. You can see that I ended up buying some more posters and adding it. And then my friend had the genius suggestion to somehow frame it out. I decided to frame it out just with paint. So I am taping off just a little skinny frame with pink. That pink is gonna be sort of an accent color that you're gonna see popping up throughout the space. And then this part of the project, I just completely forgot what I was doing. So it's all recorded in vertical and it's on my social media, but I wanted to show you, I ended up making these cornices. A cornice is basically a rigid piece that goes on top of a window. It's a decorative element. It's often covering curtain hardware. We have some basic blackout shades, so they will cover that. But I also just wanted to make the windows look a little more interesting. There's not an easy way to have curtains in there because of furniture in front of the windows, and the bookshelf is really close to it. So I thought this would be a nice way to bring in one more decorative element, a little bit of texture, a little bit of a detail, and it's an easy enough build. The upholstery is a different story, but I was able to do it, and spoiler, they look really, really cute. I had upholstered each of those individual little strips, so they were able to pop right off of the headboard that I had built, so I could just reupholster them in a better color. And then this is the last thing. I have all these cute little pink frames. They're not the best quality, but I just love that they brought in that pink, and the girls picked some family photos that they liked, so I am adding a gallery wall. And you're gonna see in just a minute how the finished space came together. Here's the finished space. The furniture layout is actually the same. I was frustrated by this. I wanted to figure out a better layout, but the girls, like I said, wanted the bed in that corner. But there's a couple things that I really think help and pulled this room together. I think a smaller couch was huge. Getting rid of that bookshelf right when you walked in the door, that was really helpful. And then bringing in that big storage feature with the desk underneath, again, that is really useful, and they like to sit here and do drawings, and I'm hoping that that will be a space that will bring them just some peace and quiet. You can see the window cornices. I told you, they're really cute, right? I added that pink detail. That's just a pink grosgrain ribbon that I glued in place to add a little bit of a line. There's a cute gallery wall. That rose color is present throughout the space, and a new rug. I think that gallery wall is adorable. There's that older painting. My great-grandmother did that, so that's really sweet. You can see the plug-in sconce over the bed. Overall, the girls are crazy about it. I hung a hook so that they have a place to hang towels and coats and backpacks. I love how cohesive the space is now. It feels grown up without being too mature. They both really love it, so that's a win. When you can get a sixth grader and a freshman to like the same space, that is a victory in my book. So it is not an ideal solution for them, but it is better than it could be. And I'm just delighted with how this room turned out. And I wish I had done it sooner. Thanks so much for watching. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time.